A woman doesn't fall for the guy who chases her. She falls for the guy who has mastered himself. When a man walks into a room without needing anyone's approval, holding a strong drive and total self-belief, something in her mind instantly triggers that this is a 1% man. Most men spend their entire lives playing the wrong game. They try to trick women into liking them. They change their clothes, they copy lines they heard online, they pretend to be someone they aren't. But women do not respond to fronting. They respond to identity. Neediness occurs when you place a higher priority on what others think of you than what you think of yourself.
He says neediness occurs when you place a higher priority on what others think of you than what you think of yourself.
Anytime you alter your words or behavior to fit someone else's needs rather than your own, that's needy. Anytime you lie about your interests, hobbies, or background, that's needy. Anytime you pursue a goal to impress others rather than fulfill yourself, that's needy. Whereas most people focus on what behavior is attractive or unattractive, what determines neediness, and therefore attractiveness, is the why behind your behavior. You can say the coolest thing or do what everyone else does, but if you do it for the wrong reason, you will come off as needy and desperate and turn people off. If you walk into a room secretly believing you are awkward, undeserving, or a second-choice option, your subconscious will betray you long before you open your mouth. Your eyes shift nervously. Your posture slumps. Your voice lacks weight. You try to compensate by over-explaining yourself or laughing at jokes that aren't funny. Every high-value woman in that room feels that lack of core conviction instantly. We're kind of impressed and intimidated by people who dose them, who enter in with a lot of confidence and boldness and a bit of drama and surprise. It kind of appeals to the animal in us. We're put back on our feet, and we're like, whoa, what's going on here? It's impressive. It creates a distinctive impression, whereas if you kind of enter in like with your business or your book or in work in a meeting and you're kind of half-assedly promoting an idea, it already looks weak before it even started, right? If you don't have confidence in your own idea, how can I have confidence? Identity is simply the collection of core beliefs you hold about yourself, and your subconscious mind runs on those beliefs 24 hours a day. Your brain is a prediction machine. It doesn't question whether what you tell it is good or bad. It simply accepts your self-talk as an absolute command. If you repeatedly broadcast internal noise like, I always get rejected, I'm bad with women, or I'm not built for success, your mind treats that as an operational order. It goes out into the world and actively searches for proof to validate your low self-worth. The shift happens the moment you reclaim your internal identity. When you reprogram your subconscious with, I am building an empire, I am incapable of being intimidated, or I am the prize, your brain stops hunting for reasons to fail and starts hunting for proof that you are undeniable. Attraction is not a formula you execute through desperation. It is the natural, inevitable byproduct of stepping into an undeniable identity. Most men freeze up around high-value women because their attention turns completely inward. The second a stunning woman walks into their sightline, their brain enters panic mode. They hyper-focus on their heart rate, panic over awkward silences, and frantically search for the perfect thing to say. When you are trapped inside your own head, consumed by self-consciousness, you project zero power. You cannot lead a conversation when you are constantly seeking permission to speak. And breaking out of this internal trap requires a radical shift in where you direct your focus. One of the ways I used to treat my socially anxious clients.
That's interesting. Yeah, a little jujitsu there. That makes sense.
It worked like a charm, because, first of all, as soon as most of these people who were socially anxious had some social skill.
So maybe they were worried about going to a party, and one approach to that would be to teach them relaxation exercises, and to teach them to encourage them not to focus on their own experience, but when you tell someone not to think about something, they tend to think about it more, right? So what I did was I said, well, go to that party and pick a couple of people and try to make them comfortable. That's interesting. To transition from an average man into the top 1%, you must first set a goal that seems completely impossible to your current self and go execute it relentlessly. Build a dominant physique. master a high-income skill, or secure true financial independence. But understand this. Simply starting a good habit isn't enough for a real identity shift. You have to actively kill off the old version of yourself. Most men retreat back into mediocrity because they cannot handle the friction of leaving their old self behind. They miss their old, lazy routines because it feels safe to them. But if you want the results that only 1% of men achieve, you cannot keep clinging to the comfort zones that 99% of men live in. Your brain has zero historical data proving you can lead with absolute authority if you spent the last 5 years being passive. You cannot simply think your way into self-trust. You have to act your way into it. Every single decision you make throughout the day is a direct vote for the man you are becoming. When you wake up at 5 a.m. and hit the gym despite the fatigue, that is a vote for the 1% man. When you turn down cheap dopamine to lock in on your business, that is a vote for the 1% man. When you look an attractive woman dead in the eye with zero hesitation and zero fear of rejection, you flood your system with concrete proof. Eventually, the old doubts fade away because you've proven to yourself who you really are. And once your internal identity is locked in, you unlock the ultimate weapon of the top 1%, unshakable frame control. Frame is your underlying reality, your emotional stability, and the boundary of who you are. Average men surrender their frame the second a high-value woman enters the room. They change their views to match hers, agree with statements they actually hate, and bend over backward, hoping to get a little bit of attention. They change their core identity for short-term validation. A 1% man never abandons his reality to fit into someone else's. Others enter his world. You are a much more interesting person than you give credit for, because you're trying to fit into the group and be what other people want you to be. And you know, we all want the power to change ourselves, right? That's why self-help books do so well. But you can't begin to change yourself in any meaningful way until you confront who you really are. You know, if you go out in public and you don't look in the mirror, your hair will look really weird, right? You can't begin to improve your looks until you look in the mirror. You can't begin to change yourself until you look into that mirror of who you really are. All that other stuff that you don't want to confront. Average men surrender their frame for validation. A 1% man grounds himself so deeply in his own vision that others naturally step into his world. He doesn't seek approval from the world because he has already confronted and approved of himself. Stop waiting for the money, status, or women to act like a top-tier man. Shift your identity first, stack the daily evidence, and let reality catch up. Kill off the old self, build the evidence, become undeniable.